So, what was my senior project? Cross-cultural appeal of Iron Maiden. And this was actually the slide that I used to present, the first slide that I used to present at Scholars Day last year. But I'm going to go ahead and jump back to our TV here. So, let's see here. Jump back a little bit.
Is there a face that's coming out of that?
Yeah, so that's the incarnation of Eddie as he is on the new album. He's a little bit different from this, but more of an alien now to go along with space theme. This was kind of the beginnings of my project, where in 2008 they embarked on a tour in this Boeing 757, which the fans actually had a competition. It's named Ed Force One, and they toured in this plane all around the world. So it was called the Somewhere Back in Time World Tour. Somewhere in Time, named their 6th studio album. So, and they were playing songs from that era. So, hence the name. And the first leg was 45 days. They played 23 shows, and I think it's either an average of 3,000 kilometers between each show. The tour started in India. Next shows were in Australia. Then they hit LA, where I actually got to see them, and went down through Latin America. So there were actually 4 legs before this tour was done, and the first and last they used the plane for. And they so this was the big Eddie, well, the walk-on Eddie, as they call him, from that tour. And that's the Eddie that appeared on the Somewhere in Time cover. And this was Costa Rica, which they never played before, and it's about 28,000 plus people, and it sold out in less than 2 hours when they went on sale. Another image from that tour. In addition to this amazing tour, this documentary crew came along, and they produced a documentary called Flight 666, which was the actual call sign for the plane in the airport. So in the documentary, it's kind of funny there, but they're walking through the airport and you hear the 666 over the PA. But what this, and it's really cool because they, since they were going all over the world, in addition to the documentary, they produced the concert DVD, and each song is in a different city, and in most cases on a different continent. So the cool thing about this is I'd already kind of heard about Maiden's global following and whatever, but this was the first time that I'd actually seen the scope of it. And the documentary, in addition to concert footage and interviews with the band, interviewed fans. I was actually getting to hear these fans speak about the band and how much they, how much of an impact the band had on them. So that left me with this question, which is, what is it about the cross-cultural appeal of Iron Maiden? Why does this band from Britain, and these guys are now, some of them are actually almost 60, but why do they appeal to people who live in all these different cultures? So that was kind of my focus question. So this is what I was going to do. After seeing Flight 666 and making my concentration, proposing that, don't think I'd actually even, I don't think I'd actually even written it yet. But this was my idea, is that Maiden was going to go on tour, and I would go see 3 shows, one in the US, one in Canada, and one in Mexico. And then I would interview fans there about Maiden, and as well as take lots of photos. Because again, free press story, news sort of thing, you'd have photos. And then write up the findings, do the whole shebang in Fairhaven Free Press, and just kind of use the article as a way to put together everything I found and try and make sense out of it. So, the Somewhere Back in Time World Tour was just kind of this thing that gave me the idea. The Final Frontier Tour was where I actually put my my plan into practice. So, and this was, I took this at White River Amphitheater at the Seattle show when they came through. So that's Bruce Dickinson there, and yet another incarnation of Eddie behind him as the backdrop. So, so now this was really cool. 2 weeks before the show, before the shows, Seattle and Vancouver were each 2 days apart. In June, I turned 23 on the 23rd, right between, so that was pretty cool. And there, right before the tour happened, Steve Harris, who's the bassist and the founding member, and a guitarist, Yannick Gears, they were both on a radio show. And I called in, got to ask him my big question, so holy shit idea, big moment there. And so that really, I mean, that was a huge inspiration. I'm like, well, I have to do this project now. Like, how can I back out? So that was huge. And then, but the other thing was I wanted to come up with some more questions. But this thing was, the radio show happened with about 2 weeks before the tour went on. So I felt this immense sort of pressure, not to mention slowing down because of, summer break and all that. So but I put some more questions together. So, what do you like about the band? And Eddie, what does he represent to you? That was another big one, because Eddie is kind of the mascot of the band, and I don't know, he's a pretty key image. So yeah, and then I went and was asking fans those questions. At the show, one of the notable moments was introducing the song Blood Brothers. They dedicated it to Ronnie James Dio, who was another metal singer. He actually was singing for Black Sabbath for a while, and he had actually just passed away that May. So that had just happened. So, and he was a huge inspiration to the members of the band and a good friend as well. So they dedicated that to him, the song to him at both shows. So that was cool, and I rocked out a lot because it was great. So however, after doing this, it was really easy to find some of the faults, which the big one was that I adhered really strictly to my questions, as in I didn't, there wasn't a whole lot of follow-up sort of question. It was definitely more of an interview and less of a dialogue and conversation, which is what I have discovered I prefer with my other journalistic pursuits. But the truth was, I was really nervous because there was a lot of uncertainty, and some of the top ones I was able to process and remember were not really knowing when the gates were going to open for the show. All venues have their own weird ways of doing things, so even now I've been to I think nine Maiden shows, and it's still always nerve-wracking, because what if my ticket doesn't work, that kind of thing. I was also worried about the project moving forward, and just a lot of self-doubt. Like, what if these people don't say anything interesting? Of course, some people did, but realistically, there were only a few interviews at both places that were actually worth anything. And I was also concerned with the people who I was interviewing, their interests. I mean, they're at a rock show. I mean, why are they going to sit here and listen to some idiot with a recorder talking to them? Even if it is about something they like. There were definitely some people I was talking to, I'm like, I don't think these people want to be talking to me right now. So that was tough. So now the other big thing, though, that I was also unaware of at this point was this first tour in 2010, that leg was just covering the US and Canada. So I really had no idea when I was going to go. I knew, I mean, Maiden is huge in Latin America and South America, so I knew that they were going to tour there. I just didn't know when. They could have waited. They could have gone and done Europe first and all that, and maybe they wouldn't have even have gone there yet. Who knows? So, but November of 2010, I got my wish. They announced the full Latin America, South America tour for March 8th, and March 18th was when they were going to be, 2011 was when they were going to be in Mexico City, which was rad because that happened to fall right on our spring break. So, didn't have to, I think I took a final early, and aside from that, I was just gone immediately then to winter quarters. So, another awesome logistical thing, barrier there dodged. So, Mexico City, the shows in Seattle and Canada, I think were, I know the Canada show was sold out. I think that was maybe 19,000. Seattle, I think, was maybe about 14. Estimated audience size in Mexico City, though, was 50 to 60,000 people. A lot of people. In fact, this this DVD and Vivo actually just came out. Another awesome resource for my project when I'm trying to put it all together. And it was actually shot in Chile, but it's pretty much the same size crowd that was in Mexico City, so that was nice. However, I still didn't get as many interviews as I wanted. There was the language barrier, but I knew a lot more Spanish then than I know now. So I was trying to make up for that and get around that. But I did interview some people at the venue, including some kids who were actually staying at the gate overnight. They were already waiting in line, so that was cool. And at the same time, though, I had more time for interviews because at these other two shows, I was just heading to the show for the day. Here I was actually in Mexico City, staying with friends I'd actually met through the fan club, which was really cool. They were, everyone down there was very, very nice, and that's something I've noticed about Maiden fans, is they tend to take care of each other, which is always exciting. And it's a good little community that's kind of been built around the band. The show was probably the best one I've been to in terms of audience, drowning the, they were drowning the band here and there. But instead, Blood Brothers, they were doing a shout out to Japan this time because the band was actually 8 minutes from landing on this tour when the earthquake and tsunami hit. They were 8 minutes from landing in Japan and they were diverted, but that was very close. There was also the violence in Japan and Libya. There had been an earthquake in New Zealand, so that it devastated Christchurch, New Zealand there, so and almost 200 people died. So they did they were just they did a big recognition of that, dedicated the song to that, so that was good. And I really rocked out. So overall, what did I gain? I managed to get a lot of photos for my story. Most of them didn't turn out, but enough did. And then I did get some audio interviews, and I definitely got a better understanding of the feedback that kind of happens between the audience and the band, especially comparing, the three shows. The U.S. show definitely came in last. Canada was ridiculous, and then Mexico, though, was just, the crowd drowning the band. The Mexico show, I was at the barrier for all the shows, but the Mexico show, I got in at 4:30. The band didn't start playing till 9 p.m. It was hot. People were getting lifted out of and the audience, they were just pushing the whole time. It was just crushed against the barrier for, 6 something hours until the band was done. So that was nuts. And then the cool thing though was I actually did an online survey, just kind of opening it up to people and telling them about my project. And I actually wound up getting about more than 50 replies to all my questions online. So that was cool. Got me a lot more material.
Check.